Hi guys, hold on for a second. Before we proceed to the video, I have something very important to tell you. Professor John Wickoffers has published his new book in collaboration with Little French Media, and the title of the book is Neoliberalism, Inequality, and Authoritarianism. This book details how neoliberalism impacts the geopolitical economy in the 21st century. You can buy it from Amazon, and the link is in the description. Thank you. Now let's proceed to the video.
Hello everyone, welcome. This is an introduction to a longer analytical video on the global competition of artificial intelligence in light of the fact that in late January, a Chinese company, DeepSeek, made a very important announcement regarding its own program its own chatbot program, IA program, competing with the US-based open IA artificial intelligence ChatGPT. This was indeed revolutionary because just a few days before the Chinese company made that announcement, in fact, on the second day after Trump took office, he took office on the 20th, on the 21st, he held a big meeting with three billionaires, high-tech billionaires at the White House, and he announced the investment, presumably most from the private sector, of $500 billion. This was on January 21st. $500 billion for the further and continued development and safety and security of artificial intelligence. And of course, new centers to be opened throughout the United States. And of course, one of the reasons that Trump held this at the White House, presumably this would bring high-paying jobs across a number of states. It's a multi-year program, and this was just a few days after the Chinese company made its announcement that it didn't spend $500 billion. In fact, it spent several million, 5 to 6 million. Now that we have to be forthcoming about this. One could take the word of the company that it spent that kind of money, what it says, or it could go with critics in the West, as well as in Asian countries, India, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, who argued that the Chinese company, with the support of the government, actually has spent a lot more money than it has disclosed, that's several $1 million, to develop this. Now, the question is, why is this so important? Other than the fact that on the day the announcement was made, that the Chinese company made that announcement, that DeepSeek made the announcement, NVIDIA, the world's largest company in artificial intelligence, when we take into account market capitalization, that's the world's largest company, lost $600 billion on one day, 22% of its value. This was stunning. So one aspect of the Chinese announcement is the impact it had on competitor companies in the United States and elsewhere. Obviously, there are companies competing with China, and China competed with them, of course, in Europe, in Australia, in Taiwan, in South Korea, Japan, Canada. So you have Russia, Israel. So you have many countries around the world in this business, in the artificial intelligence business. This is presumably the future of um, the economy, and presumably a good segment of the economic bone, the backbone of the economy in the future. Clearly, there are many who have warned about this, that it may be another bubble like the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s. Um, and that's just one warning. The other warning, there are other warnings, like what does this mean for the surplus labor force that it's going to create, whether it's in China, which has 1.5 billion people, or in the United States, which has 350 million people. So that's another dimension. There are also um, other important dimensions. There have been many articles written since DeepSeek came out, and of course, videos have been made and so forth to explain it away. And there are many aspects to it, from the geek analytical aspect, that is the technology aspect. What does this mean? How is this different? Is it safe? Um, is it something that some kids in a garage can now take and manipulate? Can someone use it to access military secrets? There have been all kinds of reports about that. There have also been reports about the company stealing technology, Western technology, and that apparently also there have been articles that claim there have been an exodus of illegal sales of technology to the Chinese by Western companies. Okay, there's that angle of it. Um, if we in the video that in the longer analytical video that I invite you to take a look at, that I deal with larger issues of geopolitics and geoeconomics. What does this mean for China's role in the world balance of power, economically and geopolitically? What does this mean in terms of the bilateral relationship between China and the United States, which is getting increasingly tense, especially since artificial intelligence has been described as a race, like the old nuclear arms race, as a race for the future. Clearly, one of the blows to the West, especially the United States, with the DeepSeek announcement, was just the prestige alone that this thing brings. The other was that the Chinese claim they built it better, faster. Nobody expected this. Everybody expected the Chinese to, at some point, to make an announcement on progress of artificial intelligence chatbots, but no one expected it this soon. I think the speed of it took a lot of people by surprise. The other thing is it coincided with the first week of Trump's presidency in the White House. Another aspect of it was that they um, that they can make it available at low cost or no cost, um, and that's another dimension. And of course, the other and very important one is that Chinese companies, as well as companies from around the world, including some in the United States, lined up to see if they can be part of this experiment. Putting in the longer video that I have prepared, I look at AI in a broader context in terms of um, where does AI fit into the larger scheme of things in China's secondary and tertiary sectors of production, that is, the manufacturing and the service sectors of production. And what we have here, when we look at analytical studies that have been done by scholars when we look at where China stands in manufacturing, robotics, drone technology, electrical vehicles, autonomous vehicles, quantum computers, computing, I should say, and biotech and bioengineering. When we look at those sectors, China is either ahead or close behind its G7 competitors. It's, in other words, the it's stunning that this is the case, and the reason is because in the last 8 years or so, there has been a concerted effort of a containment policy on China by U.S.-led allies, and there have been sanctions and tariffs and restrictions on Western companies, not just on U.S. Western companies transferring technology to China, doing business with China. Now, obviously, there are those who claim, including CEOs in Silicon Valley, that the Chinese steal this stuff, that it's exported illegally by various sectors, including Americans, presumably. Um, uh, Somehow they get it. They have it. And so this is the larger issue. Another dimension that I deal with, and I have to mention this one, is what did this announcement mean for the U.S. for the health of the U.S. Financial system and its economy in a broader sense? Very briefly, let me explain, because I don't want to go over 15 minutes with this teaser video. Um, the United States has lost quite a bit of the foreign money coming in during the first Trump administration and then Biden up to today in the Treasury bond investments. When we look at the Federal Reserve Bank's numbers, what we see is that there has been a decline, steady decline. So, China, of course, is very glaring. They've been dumping some of the holdings, the treasury holdings, but we have seen less and less money in that domain. Now, and yet the dollar has stayed relatively strong, especially against some of the major hard currencies, that is, the reserve currencies. One reason is because there has been a sharp rise in stock market inflows in the Dow Jones, in the S&P 500, and the Nasdaq, and specifically in high-tech stocks, especially artificial intelligence, which is supposed to bring these huge returns. And by the way, rightly so, because when you look at the performance of some, well, let's take Nvidia, which lost 600 billion on the day that DeepSeek made the announcement. When you look at the returns of a company like Nvidia, why not? Of course, people have become millionaires with a very low investment, relatively speaking. So that money has actually helped, that liquidity has helped to offset the drop in foreign investments in the treasuries. So that has been very important. But what we have had, and this is an issue that I deal with in the longer video, is um, all this time, all along, in the last 8 years or so, 10 years, is a rise in speculation in the high-tech stocks, including, by the way, and especially in artificial intelligence stocks. Huge speculation. So they're overvalued. Now, and this is the concern. Now that China comes along and says, by the way, we can make it cheaper, more energy efficient. We use less energy than our competitors overseas. And we can do it faster. And we'll make it universally available. This is a shock for these companies that are very rich in valuation. And there is concern that the money coming in will go somewhere else. Chinese companies will go more lucrative investments in some other sector. So that by itself is a concern because it comes at a time that the Trump administration has imposed tariffs on China, and China is retaliating right and left, by the way. They're not holding back. And this is not the first Trump administration. This is a far stronger China than it was in 2017. This is not the same China. But at the same time, the Trump administration has threatened the rest of the world too. Its neighbors, Europe, Taiwan, Taiwan Semiconductor, that it has threatened South Korea, Japan, everybody. Anybody who tries to get ahead of the U.S. So it comes at a very bad time when U.S. needs that capital, that foreign influx, and it doesn't need. The last thing it needed was this announcement by DeepSeek that threw a monkey wrench, if you will, into this thing. Now, the United States has reacted in a typical manner. When all else fails, go to sanctions, economic nationalism, tariffs, um, banning DeepSeek, and so forth. Interestingly enough, by the way, one would think that it's just the populist right wing elements in Washington, D.C., in the Trump administration that are doing this. But when you scratch the surface, you find out it's actually Silicon Valley supporting what the Trump administration is doing. Not all of them, by the way, because there are some companies. Bill Gates has a very good, Microsoft has a very good relationship, has historically with China. They have a lot of uh, huge stake in China. I mean, a lot of U.S. companies make a lot of money. Apple has a huge stake. So they try to be coy about it and careful and not to alienate China. But the fact is, um, China will hit hard. The response to the United States has been already to punish China, keep DeepSeek out of not just government at federal, state level. States have already, a lot of states have banned it, but have their partner countries, corporations, any company doing business with the United States government can't adopt it. So it's the usual strategy of containment, economic containment. I want to thank you. I'm sorry, I went over more on this than I wanted to on this introductory session. I invite you to look at the longer video, which has a lot more analytical material and deals with this issue. And I invite you to join this channel. It's an educational channel. And subscribe. My very good friend Asad Alim runs this channel, and he's devoted to educational issues. Thank you very much.